Hi there. For this video, we'll be talking about intercepts. So for our question of the day, given this figure out here, clearly this blue line out here passes through our coordinate axis. So it passes through the x-axis as well as the y-axis. So if you don't know what these are, you may check out my You may check out my video on Cartesian planes and the introduction to coordinate geometry, as I discussed there the basics on the Cartesian plane. So I'll probably link that one around this video. So going back, as we can see, the blue line passes through the x and y axis. So have you ever wondered what these points out here are called? So these are the points wherein this blue line passed through the axis. Moreover, have you ever wondered if it has some sort of significance in math? So that is what we'll be discussing in this video. So the points that I have mentioned are actually called the intercepts, or these are the points where the graph passes through the axis. And more specifically, again, since this out here is the y-axis and this out here is the x-axis, if it passes through the x-axis, we call this the x-intercept. And as it passes through the y-axis, we call this one the y-intercept. Aside from this, let us discuss what its ordered pair is. So first, in the y-intercept, since it passes through the y-axis, we know that its x component must be 0. Since, again, if we recall the number line here, we have here 1, 2, like that, -1 here. We know that in this part, it is 0. So, given that, we know that the x component is 0 and the y component is some value. So this is how its ordered pair looks like. For this one out here, by similar reasoning, we will see that, or we can see that for its ordered pair, the y component now is 0 and its x component is some value out here. So that is something that is very nice about intercepts, especially when we are tasked to find the x and y intercept given an equation. Then what we can do is we can simply set one of its component or coordinates to be 0. For y-intercept, we set x equals 0, and for the x-intercept, we set y equals 0. So really nice property. Lastly, before we move on to some examples, note that the significance of intercepts can be seen in graphing and discovering the behavior of functions in math. Like for instance, we would use this concept along with slopes in the following videos in order to find the equation of a line. So that is something that you could wait or stay in tune for. Let's have this first example. In this one, we are tasked to find the x and y intercepts of the following. So in this one, we are given the graphs and we are given the line. So take note that this out here is our equation. This as well. Equation, and this is, or technically it's our function or our line in general. So let us find the x and y intercepts. So first, for the first one, again, to find the x intercept, recall that this out here is the x axis and this out here is the y axis. So for x intercept, we focus on the x axis. So focusing on the x axis, we can see that it crosses the x axis, or the line crosses the x axis at this point out here. So counting that one, we have here -1, -2. Therefore, the x intercept is given by the ordered pair -2, and again, its y coordinate is 0. For the y intercept, take note that it crosses the y-axis at this point out here. So counting that one, we have here 1, 2, and 3. Therefore, the y-intercept is given by 0, 3. As simple as that. For the next one, by similar process, first we find the x-intercept. So again, this one is the x-axis, so we focus out here. So the line intersects the x-axis at this point. So counting that one, we have here -1, -2, -3, -4, and out here is -5. Therefore, our x-intercept for this next one is given by -5, 0. Now for the y-intercept, the line intersects this y-axis at this point out here. Therefore, the y-intercept is given by, let's count. We have here -1, -2, -3, and -4. So the y-intercept is given by 0, -4. Now let's have the last one. For the last item, let's first find, this time, the y-intercept. So the y-intercept for this one, focusing on the y-axis, we have this, since the line intersects this point. So counting this one, we have here 1, 2, and 3. Therefore, the y-intercept is given by 0, 3. How about the x-intercept? Well, observe that since this line is straight and just extend out to the left and out to the right, clearly it will never intersect the x-axis. Therefore, in this item, we don't have an x-intercept. No. So take note of that one, that in certain lines, there is a possibility that we don't have an x-intercept, even y-intercept. And also, not only in lines, but in the future, when we have different graphs already, like parabola or some crazy graphs or curves, take note that there is a chance that the x and y intercept is not present. So that is it for this first example. Let's move on to the next one. For this next example, we are tasked to find the x and y intercepts given this equation out here. So how do we solve this one? Well, the key is taking note that in x-intercept, we set y to be 0, and in y-intercept, we set x equals 0. So this one is mentioned above. I hope you remember that one. And yeah, using this idea, we can now find the x and y-intercept given this equation. So it's right here for the x-intercept. For the x-intercept, by setting y to be 0, our equation becomes 2x minus 3 times 0 equals 6. This will give us, so the 3 times 0 will just be 0. So we'll be left with 2x equals 6. Divide to both sides. And we get x equals 3. So our x-intercept is given by 3, 0. There. For our y-intercept, so let's write that one down. Y-intercept. This time we set x to be 0. By setting x equals 0, we'll have 2x minus, 2 times 0 rather, minus 3y equals 6. 2 times 0 will just give us 0. So we'll be left with negative 3y equals 6. Divide negative 3 both sides, and we'll be obtaining y equals negative 2. Therefore, our y-intercept is given by 0, negative 2. And so we have obtained the x and y intercepts. So this is the way to solve for the intercepts given an equation. It's just by this out here. Set y equals 0 and set x equals 0 respectively. As you can see in this problem, so this one is the item above. You can verify using a graphing calculator that our answer is indeed correct. So in this one is the equation given, and this one out here is our y-intercept, and this one out here is our x-intercept. So as you can see, when we plot them, so let's use a different color. Let's use A to be this one, so it represents this, and let's use red to represent the x-intercept, which is this. So as you can see in its graphical representation, our calculations are indeed correct. So yeah, this is the x-intercept, and this is the y-intercept. There. So to end this, here are 2 exercises that you can try to work on in practicing your skills in finding the intercepts. So for this first item, the process is similar to our first example, wherein you just find where this line intersects the x and y axis respectively. And for the second one, again, given this equation, to find the x and y intercept, we simply need to take note of the step that we set x equals 0 or y equals 0 depending on what we are finding. So that's it. I hope you learned something from this one. Feel free to comment down below any suggestions, recommendations that you have for our future videos. Also, if you have an answer for these exercises, you may comment it down below so that I could verify if you got the answer or the solution correctly. So that's it, and that is all for this video.